G'day viewers, my name's Graham Stevenson and I'd like to invite you to come on a journey of creativity and learning and adventure through the series Colour in Your Life. There's an artist in every family throughout the world, and lots of times there's an artist deep down inside all of us as well. So grab your kids, your brothers, your sisters, your aunties, uncles and mums and dads and come and see how some of the best artists do what they do. Well, g'day viewers and welcome back to Colour in Your Life. Well, we are back in New Zealand and we are in the beautiful city of Auckland, just a little bit north of it. And I'm with the lovely lady, Lauryne Hart.
Hi.
How are you? Welcome to the show.
You?
As you can see behind me, Lauryne is an amazing artist. She paints corporate pieces. And you probably can't even see how far this particular painting goes in the camera. But what she's actually got and what we're standing under is a huge lift system for this lady to be able to paint these massive pieces that she does for corporate entities all across New Zealand. Now, this particular piece here is for a company called AIG, is that right?
It's in the AIG building. The company is Rob Holdings Limited.
It's amazing and it's just incredible. But Lauryne has a history from South Africa for a start. Yeah, you immigrated to New Zealand 19 years ago. But she's always had a great love of painting the human form. Tell me about your inspiration and also how did you come to the fact that you paint these huge paintings?
This was a commission. It's a series of 4 paintings called Work, Live and Play. And it's for this particular client who came into the gallery one day when I happened to have an exhibition on. And he actually bought some of my paintings, loved it and put in an order, which is great.
And that's amazing, but it's actually taken you, this is the 4th and the last of the panels, and they are 3.8 metres
high.
And how wide are they?
They're 1.9.
Incredible pieces of work.
There's no canvas larger because it comes in a roll. So
it's fantastic, and obviously had to get the canvases made up. But then again, her darling son, with the size of the pieces that Lauryne does these days, actually built this huge monolithic stage so that Lauryne can actually go up and down inside the studio to be able to do all this. But what we're going to do today is we're going to literally talk about how you structure these for a start, which is what I'd like to do. We're going to go over this piece and do a number of varying washes. You're going to explain to us how you actually structure these type of things, because they really are quite large. To put a piece like this together, you just simply don't start drawing, do you? You have to draft it.
No, you don't. So what I've done was, firstly I had to come up with a concept because I had no real brief except use your colour and your line. And I went through all sorts of scenarios and just couldn't come up with a concept. And like often happens, in the middle of the night, an idea came to me.
It's the best time.
So we seldom sleep, we just worry with our eyes closed. And so I started off, I realising it's such a big piece, I'm not familiar with a big piece this large at that stage. Made a proper concept drawing on scale on which I could chop and change and move the pieces around. So with that in mind, I could come and then see, okay, it will work. Did grid lines to keep it to scale, and wasn't as daunting as I thought. It's
fascinating, and I would think obviously, and you were saying before that after painting these big corporate pieces, it's very difficult to go back to the little ones.
Very difficult. Even a 2x2 meters now seems tiny.
And there's so much more freedom, I would say.
So much more freedom. You can put in as many characters as you like. The piece before this one had 26 people in the painting itself, which you can never do on a smaller scale. So it really helped.
All right, well what I'm going to do is I'm going to step off the stage and go down to a little spot downstairs, and then let Lauryne do what she needs to do, and she's going to take us through some processes, but this is fascinating, and obviously we'll see this piece of equipment go up during the day as well, but I'm going to leave you to it and I'm going to watch from down there.
Okay.
Thanks guys. All right, Lauryne, I know you're going to show us some techniques today, but how do you put something this size together? The canvas has been pre-made. I think it was 3 layers of gesso on 12-ounce canvas. But how do you draft this out? How do you design something this size?
Well, I firstly draw it out as a concept drawing. I make sure that the composition works on a smaller scale first. And very often, though, if you transfer from a smaller scale to a larger scale, that which would have worked on a smaller scale does not necessarily work on a bigger scale, so you still have to make changes at the end of the day. Also, even after base layers are put on, as soon as the colour is on, you realise a composition that worked because of the colour now involved does not necessarily work. So you do get, like this man had to be moved in, you can still clearly see where he was. Didn't work there. After I put the colour in, that was quite obvious, so I had to move that in. I usually use charcoal, the old good willow sticks, and which I now have a few left. So the good old willow stick I use, I can draw and it can come off quite easily. I also have the old baby wipes, and that's easy if you've drawn with charcoal to get it off. You just use the baby wipe and it comes off quite easily. And so here you can see it's also been just drawn in on the base layer. Now I will put on paint, and I might then at that stage decide to change the colour. Like for instance, this colour eventually will be very light. So I often put different colours over other colours as well, depending on whether I feel it works or not. Yeah, so that's it.
That's fantastic. And you're using golden paints and Matisses. Why? Is there a preference for that at all?
Well, I just love the buttery feel of the golden, and also I find that using a good quality paint makes a difference. So I would, for instance, now look at her dress and think, okay, I don't get rid of the charcoal before I paint. When I use either medium or water to paint, it just blends in with the colour. I like to have my brushes nicely sorted,
yes,
so that when I have to work, it's easy. I like my brushes nice and dry, and they're all natural hair brushes. So what I'll do is I've got my paint nicely sorted so that it's easy for me. There's transparent, semi-transparent and opaque paint, so they're all nicely sorted. So I would go to my purple, which is the purple transparent one, and I would use the permanent violet dark, which is a nice transparent color. I would pop some on my lids, good old yogurt lids, pop it on, and you can just throw it away after you've finished. Okay, so I would use medium, so I just pop any amount of medium on there. Now just...
So you sort of prefer using the medium than water?
In the beginning stages, I actually use mostly water when I put on my base coats, but when I get to these stages, to actually prevent the paint from dripping, I would use just the medium without adding any water.
Okay.
So this might make a bit of a noise, but I'm just going up slightly. Always good to, when you actually work, to have your arm sort of bent rather than stretched out, because of the strain on your elbow. And I often go back to the same character or the same piece of the painting many times. I tend to add the light colors and the shadows at the very end of the painting. So this is quite easy to blend.
Yeah, it's a beautiful color.
So you learn when along the way, some colors are transparent, but they don't necessarily go on that smoothly with this particular color. So I might take a bigger soft brush and just wipe over it as well.
In looking at your style, who would you say has influenced you most of all?
I think it would actually be Gauguin. I like clean lines and I like colour and I like people. I think he influenced me most.
The painting Parisians with the ladies with the beads, you can see these bright Gauguinian type colours in them as well.
And with that particular piece, I'm very taken really by the styles of the 1920s, 1930s, that whole Art Deco era. And by the way people dress up in general in those days, and even in the 1950s, they really took care of how they look and how they present themselves.
Even in the picture Evening Out, which is a very 20s, 30s influence as well. You can see,
that's correct, yes.
Yeah, the hats and the dresses and the
Yeah,
whole thing.
they had a lot of detail in the clothes, you know, the way they clothed themselves, the little buttons and all sorts of things that we these days don't have anymore. So just smoothing out the colour that I've put on.
Would you allow that to dry? I mean, obviously, because we're using acrylics, is there a number of layers that you'd put on that?
Yes, so I would, but it has to be quite dry. The biggest mistake you can make is to add medium to your paint and then work another colour on this, because then it lifts it up.
Yes.
Because it becomes all tacky. So yes, after I've added this now, and you can see it makes a difference already to the way the colour looks. I would then start, I might put some yellow over at the top to just lift the whole hat up a bit. So I go back to the same character, as I say so many times. Now the good old baby wipe comes in handy.
Yeah.
I can just wipe there where I went. I made a mistake. Okay, so at this stage I might actually now leave the hat and walk away and do something different. So I go back, and I go back sometimes over several days, because each time I go you see a different colour that you can add. What I also do is, usually at the end of the day, I move my canvas out, turn it around and take a photograph, so that tonight when I'm at home and I'm in bed, I can actually look at the painting, make sure and see what I can still add or take away. Or so it is a thought process which you can't necessarily see, because I'm concentrating on one spot here. And you don't really see the larger picture. So the photograph at the end of the day for me is essential to actually get a sense of the whole painting. The colour to me is very important, because I try and convey a sense of joy through my colour. So I try to make my colour as joyful as I possibly can. We could maybe move it back at this stage and
we can have a look.
The canvas is mounted on a aluminium scaffold on wheels, which makes it fairly easy for me to move it about. I always make sure that when I wash my brushes, I do dry it thoroughly, because I prefer, as I said, dry brushes.
Okay, we're going to move it back, and this is a monolith. But this aluminium frame you got on is amazing.
It is, it's so light, it's easy for me to move around, even if I'm by myself.
It's fantastic.
So it just works well, and of course it locks the wheels, so
we could just lock it into place?
Oh, we don't have to now, but usually I would lock it in place, you know, especially when I leave it overnight. Or
wow.
Yeah.
Unreal. Okay, Lauryne, well, this area just here, the lift doesn't go down that far, so you just normally push it back and come down and work on it here?
That's right, so from about here down, I work away from the hoist, but I do have a little stool to work right down at the bottom, which I can sit on quite comfortably.
Up and down like a jackrabbit.
I've also learned that it's best to start at the top and go down with your base layers, because initially I started at the bottom and worked up, and then I had spills and things drop, and then I had a lot of damage at the bottom that I needed to fix. So when I do my finishing touches now, I will start at the very top at the sky.
That's a good idea.
Still needs the
You wouldn't sort of normally think about that, would you?
You don't. Yeah. No, I just thought, initially it will be easier, you know, you start here.
Yeah.
No.
All right, well, let's push it back and let's keep going with some work.
Okay, cool.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go. All right, well, now that we've moved it back into place, what are we going to do now?
Well, I might for now work on her dress a bit, or and after that I could go up and work on one of the men. I do tend to jump around on the painting quite a bit. At the end of the day, it makes it more interesting. You're not stuck on one piece in particular, one figure or one character, so you can move around.
There's a real narrative in your pieces, and what is the narrative of this piece?
Well, I came to realize that the modern age is more about people being isolated to a large extent. They're on their cell phone and checking Facebook and whatever, and they don't really talk anymore, while the older generation is very much talking to each other. So you can see that I have the modern younger generation at the bottom, not really talking, although they are together, where the older people at the top, the two older gentlemen, one is talking, one is actually listening intently to what he has to say, which I think is a skill we are actually busy losing, the art of really listening to the other person.
It's very similar with the piece Comforting Hand. And you've obviously got a man reaching out, and as you were saying, that women tend to talk about it, where men will just sort of reach out and touch, and then that's the end of their conversation.
That's right, yeah.
And I can see that you actually do tend to use your charcoal as an area of shading as well.
I do, yes, because the moment you add either the water or the medium, it actually softens the charcoal and it becomes a shadow automatically. So I do not aim towards realism, I just aim towards a contemporary piece that would still satisfy a realist eye maybe, but have the contemporary feel.
Yes, and I noticed that your faces, although there's a lot of expression in them, they're not hugely full of detail.
Yeah, you're quite correct, yeah. Nothing is really realistic. I mean, people don't often wear the very brightly coloured dresses, for instance, that I use, but yeah.
How long would it take you to produce a piece like this?
Well, 16 weeks working quite hard. It is a time-consuming process. I go back to the character many times.
It's a series of layers.
Layers upon layers, yes, and that gives me the depth of colour at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I can see that you squeeze the paints that you want directly out of the tubes.
Yeah. As I say, sometimes I use the medium when I layer or blend, but I use and I do like, as I say, I don't work wet on wet, but rather dry on dry.
Now you've been in a number of publications as well with your work. International Contemporary Artists, it's published in the USA. The Who's Who in Visual Art, 2014-15, published in Germany. The BMW magazine, New Zealand. You've won numerous awards. Obviously these days with what you're doing, these large commission pieces, which is, I can absolutely see that's your forte. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah, I enjoy it thoroughly.
All right, well, you said that you wanted to do a little bit of work on one of those gentlemen up there.
Yes, so we could go up a bit and...
I think it's going to be pretty amazing to see you actually go up in this lift.
So, might be slightly noisy. These two people are furthest along than the people at the bottom. So I've already done a couple of base coats, and now the fun part starts, where I can start and play around with the colour and just add some light or shade or darker colour or lighter colour where I feel it would look nice.
You're using reasonably broad brushes all the time as well?
Yes, I do. I don't like shorter brush strokes. I prefer to not see any texture.
I just wanted to go through some of these other pieces that you've done, which are just beautiful pieces of work. The Groomsman. As you said beforehand, you don't like a lot of pattern in your work?
I don't, no.
You just like those really nice plain colours?
The plain colours, and that's why I need to have the colours make a real statement.
Even with the piece, The Flower Shop, there's flowers in there, but once again the patterns of the people or the clothes of the people are still very staunch in the way that you approach them.
That's right, yes. And that particular painting reminded me of Cape Town, where there's huge flower markets.
Beautiful work. Seeing you work, and I've actually painted some very large pieces myself in my career, as large as this, if not bigger. It's a real struggle. The passion's enormous to be able to put time into something like this. It's a bit like a marathon, and it is very, very tiring.
It is very tiring because I think with a smaller painting you see the end result faster, but with a painting this size you don't see the end result unless it's a couple or 3 or 4 months sometimes. I motivate myself when I get tired by making sure I work out the amount of hours I would need to paint per day to achieve my goal, and I simply just don't go home until I've done that set amount of hours. That keeps you motivated when you feel that you just can't continue anymore with a work this large.
It's what you call discipline.
Discipline.
Yeah.
I'm going to just add a bit of a lighter red on the sock just to emphasize it. It's actually in the shade, but artistic freedom allows me to put a bit of light in here. I've worked on the shoes now. I will leave them to dry again and move up and maybe add some lighter touches to the coat.
So what, we head even higher now, do we?
We do, yeah.
Okay.
So a bit of noise again.
The great exploration.
This is now orange.
Yep.
So I'll just pop it on the red coat again to create some light.
That's what I like about your approach to your work too. You just take the colours directly out of the tubes. It'll make it so much easier to paint pictures this size too.
That's right.
Because if you had to chase your colours, I think you'd go mad.
Yeah, you would, yeah. And of course the golden is so nice and buttery, you know, you don't have to struggle with it. Applies very, very easily.
All right, Lauryne, well, how about we bring you down and we wrap it up, because it's been a monumental day working on a monumental piece, but I think it's amazing what you've done, but we'll get you down anyway.
It would be great, thanks. So this will make a bit of noise again coming down.
Well guys, what a fantastic day. It's very rarely, and we just haven't had anybody before that paints pieces as monumental as this, and so many of them. Lauryne, fantastic day.
Thank you for coming,
Yeah.
you were really wonderful.
Thank you. No, it's been fantastic, and as you can see, Lauryne only did little bits and pieces of this painting, but these really do take a long, long time to paint. I mean, they literally are a labour of love under any circumstances, aren't they? So if somebody wants to see your work, your website is?
lauryneHart.co.nz.
And going to Lauryne's website, you can see a ton of stuff in there. There's lots of information on her magnificent work, and obviously at colorinyourlife.com.au as well. But also, we're working very closely with New Zealand artists these days also. So great magazine that's going to be featuring a lot of the people that we work with. So go in and see them at newzealandartist.co.nz as well. And if you want to come and see us on our Facebook page, and also on our YouTube channel as well. We've got tons of stuff in there, and obviously Lauryne's show will be up there very shortly as well. But once again, fantastic time. We'll head off again and film some other great people around New Zealand, but until we see you guys again, remember, make sure you put some colour in your life. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.